Hello everyone, it is yet again another day in the clown decade. The decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And I'm afraid it's yet another black pilling Friday video because things are just getting out of hand in all institutions, and in this case, it's within schools. Britain's strictest head teacher was forced to stop Muslim prayers after teachers were racially harassed. Catherine Birbalsingh faces High Court challenge from Muslim pupil over ban enforced at Michaela Community School. And I would like to remind you at this point that the United Kingdom is still technically a Christian country, which is something that is probably going to be quite easily forgotten in today's video. Catherine Birbalsingh has said she was forced to ban Muslim prayers after teachers were racially harassed. The school leader, known as Britain's strictest head teacher, is facing a High Court challenge from a Muslim pupil over the prayer policy at Michaela Community School. Commenting on the row for the first time, she warned that multiculturalism can only succeed when every group makes sacrifices for the sake of the whole. In a statement shared on Wednesday morning, Ms. Birbalsingh said the school's governing body decided to stop rituals when some pupils started them against a backdrop of events including violence, intimidation, and appalling racial harassment of our teachers. So exactly what entailed a backdrop of violence, intimidation, and racial harassment, I can't exactly be sure. But if you'll allow me to speculate, the very large backdrop within the national conversation at the moment is, of course, a war happening over in Israel and Palestine. And I think it's fair to say from the past few months I've been covering the entire situation in Britain, it's fair to say that Muslims are, albeit not all Muslims, but Muslim groups certainly are trying to take advantage of the fact that they can once again play victim here. And so it seems like Catherine Birbalsingh decided, I'm not going to take any of that. You are not going to have your lunchtime prayers, as you seem to be using this as an excuse to induce violence and intimidation and racially harass teachers. Again, I'm going to assume that a Jewish teacher was called a name or two, but due to safeguarding issues, I assume we can't know for sure what happened. Michaela School is facing a legal challenge from a pupil who cannot be named over Ms. Birbalsingh's decision to introduce the ban in March last year. On Wednesday, a High Court heard that the school had taken action on prayers because of concerns about a culture shift over segregation between religious groups and intimidation within the group of Muslim pupils. Jason Koppel, KC, for the school trust, said, "These were very difficult days for the school with tensions running high." He said it is hard to see how matters would have been improved by taking more and more disciplinary action. The school's actions were BRD, on teachers' conversations with pupils over certain incidents, such as hearing about a Muslim girl who had dropped out of the school choir because she was told it was haram or forbidden, he added. A number of children had been told that they were bad Muslims for not praying and had begun to pray, Mr. Koppel said in his written arguments. So, it appears that this ban was brought on by the Muslims self-segregating. Effectively, it sounds like you had some Muslim pupils going round telling other Muslims how they should behave, and bear in mind, half of the children in this school are Muslims, by the way, and therefore they started to self-segregate, and obviously to combat this, prayers at lunchtime were banned because every pupil has to sit and eat in the dining hall together, so that there's no segregation. About 30 pupils began praying in the school's wet and dirty yard in March last year, using blazers to kneel as they were not permitted to bring their prayer mats, the hearing at the High Court was told. The court heard the school was targeted on social media with threats of violence, abuse, false allegations of Islamophobia, and a bomb hoax, but the situation has since calmed. The pupil said the school's stance on prayer was the kind of discrimination that makes religious minorities feel alienated from society. Her lawyers claim the prayer ban uniquely affects the Muslim faith over other religions due to its ritualised nature and rules around prayer. Yeah, that was the point. The point was that you were segregating yourselves, and Ms. Birbalsingh said, no, you can't do that anymore. So naturally, because we have the Equality Act, I will not be surprised if this case ends up going in favour of the Muslim pupils, and then there you go. You've opened the floodgates. The Muslim pupils now have literal legal leverage over the school. The school can't make the rules for the Muslims anymore. And you may ask, well, why would you want rules for the Muslims? Isn't that discrimination and against equality? No, not particularly, because absolutely every other religious group seems to have to make some sort of sacrifice in order to actually have this school be cohesive. As Catherine Birbalsingh addresses on Twitter, "We are in court to defend the culture and ethos of Michaela, and the decisions the governors have taken to maintain a successful and stable learning environment where children of all races and religion can thrive. We want our multicultural and multi-faith community to flourish. Ours is a happy and respectful secular school where every race, faith, and group understands self-sacrifice for the betterment of the whole. We are one big Michaela family, which on the face of it I can see exactly why that would be seen as a noble goal. At least I can see why that would be a noble goal if you are some sort of globalist or universalist who thinks, oh, we need perfectly rational, secular morals to flourish as fully developed human beings, and I don't actually necessarily agree with that. Humans have an irrationality about them which I think can literally only be fueled with some sort of religion, or at least some sort of shared culture. And as we can see from this whole episode, the issue you end up running into when you try and say everyone make sacrifices so that we can have this secular society is that as soon as you run into a group that isn't willing to do that, it all starts to fall apart. Michaela is rated outstanding by Ofsted and has a unique culture that turns out young people with exceptional character. Our pupils achieve superb exam grades, including the highest ever recorded progress at GCSE level in a state-funded school, which helps them win place at some of the best universities in the world. We're extremely proud of what we do to transform the lives of young people, many of whom are from disadvantaged backgrounds. To achieve all this, our schools must be a place where children of all races and religions buy into something they all share, and that is bigger than themselves, our country. And when I said religion before, the country is also one that can be a perfectly reasonable thing that, has that shared culture, that shared identity. The thing is that an awful lot of cultures also have a majority religion, and the problem with the United Kingdom is that nobody's really defending the religion anymore. We are an atheist country, and it's turned into a bit of a mess when it comes into our own identity. Hence, half the people seem to absolutely hate the country and want it just completely rejuvenated and to put it through some sort of revolution, and then you have the other half that actually say, a bit like Ms. Burblesing, oh no, these values are actually really good, let's try and keep them in place. But Burblesing has this weird halfway house going on where you actually have to somewhat damage British identity for all religions to actually fit into it, and we'll see what I mean by that in a minute. We have a large number of Muslim pupils. Their positive experiences help us grow the number of Muslim pupils at the school by 50%. My own grandmother was Muslim, but the governing body had to take the decision to stop prayer rituals when some pupils started them against a backdrop of events including violence, intimidation, and appalling racial harassment of our teachers. Which no doubt, given that Catherine Burblesing genuinely does have a very disciplined and strict approach to dealing with children, they were probably dealt with pretty well. And this is honestly probably why it's had to go to court, because this Muslim pupil, and no doubt her parents, have found that trying to argue against Catherine Burblesing's vision of absolutely every religion getting along cannot be fought against by their own special interests, so they've gone one above and gone straight to the High Court. Our decision restored calm and order to our school. We have always been clear to parents and pupils when they apply to Michaela that because of our restrictive building combined with our strict ethos that does not allow children to wander around the school unsupervised, we cannot have a prayer room. At Michaela, those from all religions make sacrifices so that we can maintain a safe, secular community. Some Jehovah's Witness families have objected to Macbeth as a set GCSE text. That's a new one. Some Christian families have asked that we do not hold our GCSE revision sessions on Sundays. Some Hindu families have objected to dinner plates touching eggs, and our Muslim families have signed up to the school knowing that we do not have a prayer room. We all eat vegetarian food so that we can break bread together at lunch, where children are not divided according to race or religion. We all make our sacrifices so that we can live in harmony. Again, upon finding out this bit of information, I was quite shocked when it came to that. I don't really understand why everyone has to eat vegetarian meals. I don't understand why you can't have a kosher, halal options for lunch and other people can have the choice of having pork and beef and things like that. And it really does go to show you where the first steps towards a completely secular, no barriers between religions would take you. It takes you to a place where all you can eat is rabbit food, and you do really start to lose your own identity there. And that is kind of the idea, to have an overarching, in Michaela's mind, British identity. You've got to break down these other barriers that make you unique. And the thing is, not everyone wants to do that. Seeing that this is where Michaela ends up putting your children, it honestly sounds like some sort of prison. It sounds like reconditioning. And obviously an argument can be made that anything you put your kids into is going to make some sort of conditioning. Well, if that's the case, this is not the conditioning I want my kids to go through. I don't want them to eat vegetarian food every day, unless they are vegetarian by choice, in which case that's fine. And this is why if I were to send any of my kids to school when I eventually get them, it would probably be a Catholic school. Mainly because I went to one, and in my experience, Catholic schools are very, very good. And the kids are put into an overarching Catholic identity. Even a lot of the teachers were quite devout Catholics. And I don't just mean the religious ones. And obviously at this school, it's a multi-religious school, which, if that's what you want, fine. But it really is just showing you the reality of the situation. You want a multi-religious Britain, everyone has to eat vegetarian food. On that alone, no thank you. But obviously it's completely acceptable for the parents of the children to want this, so that's fine. This is just going off on a bit of a tangent. And obviously the Muslim pupils that have been put in this school should be made aware of this, and probably already are aware. They're just fighting a battle because they feel like they can. We believe it is wrong to separate children according to religion or race, and it is our duty to protect all of our children and provide with them an environment which is free from bullying, intimidation, and harassment. I mean, the last bit's fine, but it's wrong to separate children according to religion or race. Okay, race, understandable. When it comes to religion, well, it appears that some of the kids think that they should be separated according to religion, and you're going to try and recondition them to think otherwise, which is, again, an open mission of the school, so fair enough, but how don't these kids know that that's what they're in for? Multiculturalism can only succeed when we understand that every group must make sacrifices for the sake of the whole. We allow our children freedoms of all sorts, as long as those freedoms do not threaten the happiness and success of the whole school community. Our children, whatever their background, are British. As a school, we celebrate what we have in common so that the extraordinary diversity of our cultures that we have under our roof can succeed. I will never separate children according to race and religion. It's interesting to say that all of the children are British, and yet there is a sizable portion of the pupils that reject that label and actually say, no, I'm a Muslim, and I'm going to break this school's rules, which the school has in place to make the children British, or at least the governor's idea of what British is. So that's the story with Catherine Birbalsing's school, and to be honest, I've heard Catherine Birbalsing do speeches and do activism in the past, and honestly, it's usually pretty good. I am fully with her when it comes to how to deal with school culture and discipline of children. However, she does have this new conservative instinct that's essentially the instinct of the New Labour from Tony Blair's era, where you can effectively say that being British is just a universal thing, and absolutely anyone can do it if they simply just break down their barriers and join us. And to be honest, I think on some level nationality is that. However, it is on the lowest rung when it comes to the legal stack of which groups get the most legal support, let's say, and those that get the least. And to be honest, from the sounds of how she deals with the culture of the school, I wouldn't say it was British. I would actually say that it is something akin to, and I know this is cliche, but 1984, in that you can only have your own individual religious identities very superficially, but you are going to be forced to eat vegetarian food, you are going to have revision sessions on Sunday, God's day of rest, and absolutely nobody is allowed to pray at lunchtime, when the reality of the situation is that being British does actually mean protecting Christianity to some degree. We have an entire church called the Church of England, and Scotland and Wales have them as well. You know, the whole idea of being a British conservative, as Catherine Birbalsing claims to be, you know, you have to actually conserve the British identity and culture, and putting Christianity on the same levels as other religions isn't the way to be British. Now, as I say, she should be free to try and pursue this experiment that she is clearly trying to pursue. In a lot of ways, I think it's a lot better than a lot of experiments that are being done by, say, critical race theorists. But I think trying to put it in the camp of British conservatism would be a mistake. You do have to put Christianity above everything else, I think, to truly call it British. Because the word British didn't just start to mean something after the year 2000. It has meant things for millennia before that. However, it is not just Michaela Community School that is having issues like this. Primary school could be forced to close after bomb and arson threats. Barclay Primary School in Leighton, East London, another London school, has been embroidered in a row over boys' pro-Palestinian badge. An East London primary school embroiled in a row over pro-Palestinian badges has said it may be forced to close after it received bomb and arson threats. Barclay Primary School in Leighton, East London, told parents it might have to revert to online learning if the safety of children and staff cannot be guaranteed. Parents claimed last month that children were being punished for showing solidarity with Gaza after a number of them wore Palestinian colours, badges and stickers on a non-uniform day in November. The school, which is rated outstanding by Ofsted, said it was forced to shut for the Christmas holidays 2 days early after false and malicious fabrications were spread online and resulted in escalating threats against staff. So forgive me for recognising patterns here, but again, when it came to Michaela School, bans on all sorts of religions were fine until you reached a certain one. With this one, a school gets accused of Islamophobia along with a load of other abuse, and then it has to shut 2 days earlier and is now considering going fully online. At what point are we allowed to directly address the issues surrounding this? Or are we already in the too late part of Christopher Hitchens' warning? Protests outside the school gates took place on December 21 after TikTok video alleging that an 8-year-old boy was being bullied by teachers for being Palestinian went viral. Days later, masked men climbed the fence at night to hang Palestinian flags around the perimeter. Just going to throw it out there, I do not believe that teachers were bullying an 8-year-old boy for being Palestinian. What I think really happened was an 8-year-old boy was wearing a Palestinian flag on his clothing somewhere and was asked to remove it. The backlash has intensified with police officers stationed at the school amid allegations of anti-Muslim prejudice and Islamophobia towards staff members. Lion Academy Trust, which runs the school, wrote to parents on January 10 warning that measures were being taken to secure the school for the benefit of children and staff amid despicable threats. I'd like to remind people at this point that the teacher from Batley and Spen, who showed a picture of Muhammad in one of his religion lessons, is still in hiding due to, again, a rather large quote-unquote backlash from Muslim parents. Again, when are we allowed to directly address the issues here? Because look, it's not just Muslims that are at the protest. There are an awful lot of, quite frankly, leftist white natives that are perfectly happy to be on the side of what they see as the oppressed minority because they believe they are doing God's work there. Even if 90% of them are atheists, the reason they do these good things is because they genuinely do believe that there is something bigger than themselves that they have to work towards. And what that is actually, as it turns out, pure evil. Because as far as I'm concerned, these people are on the side of allowing a school to be shut down, all because they wouldn't allow support of Palestine. And I presume they wouldn't allow support of Israel either to be shown on children's own clothes during the Own Clothes Day. For the Americans out there that don't usually have school uniforms, uniform schools typically do charity events once a term, something like that, where you bring in £1 for charity so that you can wear your own clothes for the day. But I digress. The point is that this isn't just Muslim groups doing this. This is, as you can see from the banner there, the Socialist Worker Party. Again, it's our own problem. Leftists created this problem, and leftists are still in charge and making this problem worse. They just have, to put it frankly, demographic backup these days. And the thing is, this sort of thing could have happened with absolutely any minority group. The thing is that these leftists are finding mush within the Muslims' special interest. You can tell this from all sorts of things. Take a look at all the London protests going on recently. All that pro-Palestine stuff, not at all being dealt with appropriately by the police or the politicians that we have. And it's the same thing here, the Muslim special interest. And again, just to make this clear, I'm not saying this is all Muslims. I'm sure that there is a sizable amount of Muslims out there who want to live in relative peace and not cause a stir within Britain. But with all the stories that keep coming out about these problems, frankly, something sensible has to be done with it. Simply just saying no should suffice for this sort of thing, but it's apparently not happening. No, a school just has to shut down. Whereas as police, as I'm sure they're doing good work here, should be making arrests on anyone who is intimidating the school. But look at this picture. They're just allowed to do it. But the thing is, these days as well, I can completely understand why teachers will be at the end of their tether. Because it's not just a certain selection of Muslim students and parents that are causing all these issues. The Ofsted chief has come out and said teachers are being locked in for their safety. Sir Martin Oliver has turned around broken schools. So he's not fazed by the challenges of pupil behaviour. He sets out a mission in his first interview as the watchdog's chief inspector. In other words, teachers have to lock themselves in classrooms here to protect themselves from students, and it's not any particular group of students that I can tell. There just seems to be an issue with rowdy children these days. The new head of Ofsted has said that behaviour at some schools is so bad that there are no-go areas for staff, and teachers lock themselves in classrooms for safety at lunchtime. See what I mean? Sir Martin Oliver, in his first national newspaper interview since taking over as the Watchdog's chief inspector on January 1, outlined the scale of the challenge facing education in England and set out his mission for reform. He said behaviour in particular was certainly a challenge now. As leader of the Academy Trust, he said he had taken on broken schools where students were stopping staff saying, "This is a no-go corridor, it belongs to the children." And why those children weren't then just expelled from school, I have no idea. He added there were also cases of staff locking themselves in classrooms during break and lunchtime for safety reasons. Just the standards are so low. But I genuinely think one of the issues is that if you have a high exclusion rate, then that reflects negatively on you for the Ofsted inspection. Because if you have a high exclusion rate, you are probably not a very good school, when in reality, if you're a school that just happens to accept a lot of bad pupils, it is obviously more sensible to exclude more pupils. And all these issues might genuinely just be down to poor discipline. As I go into a profile of Sir Martin Oliver. A former head teacher, he became the leader of a trust that run 41 schools, mainly in deprived areas, and garnered headlines and criticisms for strict discipline and high suspension rates. He dismisses his reputation for abrasiveness, saying he was known for being kind and considerate among his own workforce at Outwood Grange Academy's trust, while being uncompromising and improving some of the worst performing schools in poorer neighbourhoods. His approach so far at Ofsted has been more emollient and conciliatory than his predecessor, Amanda Spielman, who led the inspectorate for 7 years. The chief inspector held a lengthy meeting on the first day in the job with Professor Julia Waters, the sister of Ruth Perry, who died after her school was downgraded from outstanding to inadequate, and others that week with unions and head teachers. So in other words, this guy has direct experience in knowing what makes a good school work, but people now have an issue with the way he wants discipline to be seen, and obviously how Ofsted will make things outstanding, because a head teacher who failed an Ofsted inspection in terms that are YouTube friendly deleted herself. So now Ofsted are under a microscope because there are fears that Ofsted causes suicides. And to be fair, it is a direct contribution to this woman's state that's made her end her own life, unfortunately. But the fact of the matter remains, Ofsted have found that there are plenty of schools that are frankly just dangerous for their own teachers, and something must be done about it. And given that Sir Martin Oliver has managed to turn around at least a few schools that are from deprived areas with poor students, it's fair to say that he probably knows what he's talking about when it comes to this sort of subject. And it turns out more discipline and the ability to say no is absolutely the way to go about it. So effectively what I'm saying is that all these schools have to learn to say no, even in the face of these large crowds and immense pressures from those around them, because it's the only way we're going to improve and not keep dropping the standards within schools. And honestly, I hope Catherine Birbalsingh really does do well in court, because her school is clearly very, very successful. It's not a culture where I would want my child to join in. Not that I have anything wrong with them knowing people of other religions and things like that, but I would like them to have a good Catholic upbringing, or, to be honest, generic Christian upbringing is better than most secular ones I'm seeing these days. So, there you go. I mean, best of luck to her in her endeavour, but I believe in some way changes are going to be coming to that school one way or another in the future. Anyway, that's everything I had for you today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.